And I then hear the same male angel speak that had spoken to me in my bathroom. And the minute he says, "Welcome home. We're so glad you're here. You made it. You've done nothing wrong. You're welcome to stay." The moment he started speaking, I knew. I was like, "Oh my goodness, it's Archangel Michael." That's who was in my bathroom. So, and as I'm still getting this hug and he's saying this, I'm like, "Well, of course I'm staying. Why would I go back?" But he continues and says, "You're welcome to stay. It's your choice, but you're going to need to decide quickly." So he tells me I can share 3 things with you to help you make your decision. Number 1, if you choose to go back, you will have a successful surgery tomorrow, and you'll fully regain your health. Number 2, if you choose to go back, your baby will be born healthy. Number 3, so I'm starting to like, oh, should I go back? This is really important information. This is making me consider going back. And then number 3 was the kicker. Michael tells me, if you choose to go back, your life will be very difficult, likely for many years, because you're not living your purpose.
My guest today is Wendy Rose Williams, who had not one, but two near death experiences during her pregnancy. And since then, she has become a past life regressionist, and she wants to help you release your anxiety, pain, and depression. So, Wendy, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, Lori, thank you for having me as your guest. I'm really happy to be here.
I'm really happy to talk to you. I saw your experience a long time ago, and it's a really good one. So I'm ready to dive in deep. So, why don't you start by telling us what your life was like before this happened?
Certainly. So it was August of 1997, and I was newly pregnant. We were just over the moon. We had a toddler, but there had been years of infertility, as well as 2 ectopic pregnancies. And conservative spirituality was just not on my radar. I had an MBA degree, and so did my husband. So just very busy, hardworking parents working to build our family. And what happened was I was working at home alone. And so there's no car at home. My husband's at work. He's got one of the cars, and our nanny was at the park with our toddler, and she had the other car. And Lori, I just did not feel right the day of the first near-death experience. I'd had one visit to the OBGYN because I was only 10 weeks pregnant, and everything looked great according to him. But I was noticing 2 things that didn't seem right to me. And one was I was just having all this heartburn, this burning pain. And I had been bad enough. I'd called the doctor's office several times, and they said, "Oh, it's fine to take Mylanta. You're safe to take that." So I was, but it wasn't doing a darn thing for me. And the other thing was I kept having this vivid dream multiple times a week. And I didn't usually remember my dreams, the dream was always the same. And I would see this terrible storm out at sea, and I would see a sailing vessel, but everything would just rip and tear, like the cleats, the winches, everything rips and tears off this boat, and the masts break off, and the ship goes down. It breaks in two and goes down. Well, now this doesn't take a master dream interpreter to tell you, "Wendy, your ship's about to go down." But I didn't know the concept of prophetic dreams, that a dream might be trying to get our attention about an upcoming event, so we'll really pay attention. So I'm at home. I cannot settle. I try and lie down. I just keep going in the bathroom. I'm so restless, trying to focus on work. And finally, I just ran in the bathroom. It's like something's really wrong. I had this feeling of impending doom that I have never felt in my life before. And as I got into the bathroom, I had this searing pain in my abdomen. I looked down in surprise because it literally felt like someone stabbed a knife in me, and it felt like an organ burst was all I could think of. So I cried out to God for help, and I went down. So I was unconscious. I'm unconscious on the floor. I'm just curled up in a fetal position, just clutching my abdomen because I was in so much pain. And I only came to because there was this insistent male voice. And he kept saying, Wendy, you've got to wake up or you're going to go home. I knew exactly what he meant. I was going to die. So I opened my eyes and I'm looking around the room, and it was so amazing, so shocking. It was hard to take it in. What I was seeing was 4 or 5 large angels. There was so much light coming from them. There was so much love and compassion, and they just filled the entire bathroom. And so I answered him and said, I know, but I can't walk. I can't get to the phone because this is 1997. So we don't have a cell phone glued to our hand or glued in our back pocket. I had to get to a landline. And his reply was really telling. I believe angels speak on just multiple levels. Things can have 2 and 3 layers of meaning to it. And what he said was, you just have to be willing to try. And I think he meant that not only literally, because no one can come in and we can't, there's you can't surrender your life, you can't surrender your will to anyone, including to God or an angel, and say, make it all better, make it all perfect. We've got to put in our effort and do our best, especially when the chips are really down. I think he was also referring to free will because they could not help me without me having asked for help and being willing to do what I could. So it took everything I could to get up on my hands and knees. And once I managed to do that, it was like being gently flown the short distance to get to the landline, which was on the nightstand next to the bed. And my brain, it's like, I can't take this in quickly enough, these things that are happening, because they just did not fit my belief system at all. So I'm reaching up for the phone and I'm thinking, okay, who should I call? I was a 36-year-old woman. I'd never called 911 in my life. So that didn't even cross my mind to call 911. And so I decided to call my husband at work because he worked just 5 minutes from home. And I give him I miracles continue because I get him on the first I get him on the first call to work. I truly had never reached him like that immediately at work before. And I give him so much credit because all I said was, I need you to drive me to the hospital now. Can you take me to the hospital now? And all he said was, on my way. And I could hear him slam the phone down. So I call the OB office at that point. I tell them what's happening. I tell them my abdomen is distending really, really hugely. I don't understand what's happening. And they ask if I'm bleeding. I say, no, I'm not. I don't, it doesn't feel like a miscarriage. I'm not losing any blood that way, but I'm just in so much pain and my abdomen's getting huge. And they knew that I told them that my husband was on the way, and they said, good, at this point, that's going to be faster than 911. So when you get here, we don't want you to park the car, even just pull up to the curb and we'll be waiting for you with a wheelchair because we don't want you walking. So this is exactly what happens. And they whisk me up to the doctor's office, to my OBGYN, who thankfully is located right at the hospital. I think that was really important for me too. So we go up into the ultrasound room, and they have to help me up on the table because I can't even get up there on my own. I'm just in so much pain. And the ultrasonographer tries to adjust the machine. I'm looking at the screen in puzzlement. You can see, I'd had ultrasounds before. You can see a lot on the screen. All I can see is black. So I'm kind of like moving a little bit. So I asked her, it's like, is your machine working? It just, I can't see anything. And her reply was, I'm going to get the doctor now. So she leaves. I'm just looking at my husband like, I don't know what's going on, but that's not good. And she returns a moment later with an OBGYN physician as well as with a certified nurse midwife. So now we're all now jammed in this in this little tiny room, and the physician goes to adjust the machine, and he recognizes what's happening and tells me as kindly as he can, Wendy, you've got a major abdominal bleed. There's nothing wrong with this ultrasound machine. That's all blood. That's what you're seeing on the screen. That's why we can't see organs clearly. And that's why your abdomen is distending like this, because you're losing blood. Something has burst and it's going where it shouldn't be going. It's not going into your bloodstream correctly. So we need to admit you to the hospital right now. So someone ran and got a stretcher because they didn't want me even sitting upright in the wheelchair, and they take me over the OBGYN floor and admit me right directly into the bed, and registration comes up and admits me there. And so I've got a lot of people attending me, trying to get me comfortable. And the nurse asked me my blood type, and if I knew my blood type. I said, absolutely, everyone should know their blood type. That's really important information. So I told her it's A negative. So she goes out to the nurse's station to call the Puget Sound Blood Bank, because I'm living in the Seattle area and it's a central blood bank, to not be wasting blood. And she comes back in a few minutes later, not looking happy, and says, you won't believe this. I've got some surprising news, but I can't get blood for her, she tells my doctor, because evidently there was a train collision a few days earlier and it has used up all the supply of A negative. We had been discussing, was I going to go straight to surgery? What were we going to do? But we don't have blood, and it's just we make the decision to wait and watch. I was very comfortable with that. I knew it was the right decision. I'm just trying to imagine, because the body's a miracle. And I'm just trying to imagine, I'm kind of going through my head, okay, if I'm right in an organ burst, what are the non-essential organs? Appendix, gallbladder? Like trying to list them in my mind. And I'm just trying to picture this bleeding stopping on its own, because no one wants to rush into surgery on a pregnant woman in the first trimester. So we are able to get blood about 6 hours later. They must have borrowed units from another hospital and they hang the blood. Lori, I am in so much pain. I like blew right through the Demerol, didn't do a thing for me. And I'm on morphine. I am very unhappy. I did not want to take it, didn't want to be transfused. Again, first trimester, but what choice do you have in this situation? So we wait and watch for several days. I'm being very closely attended, and I worked in healthcare, so I could kind of see things at like just additional information that the average patient might not be able to pick up on. So I know I'm getting great care, but I can feel myself walking between worlds. And it was very hard to stay fully conscious. It was very hard to be able to answer questions intelligently when people were coming in and caring for me. And Lori, what concerned me the most was I didn't really care. That is not my personality. I have always been figure it out. Okay, plan A didn't work. What's plan B, C, D, E? Figure it out. That was just really unprecedented for me, but I just was so exhausted and in so much pain. I literally was slipping away. So on the third day, my physician tells me, Wendy, this probably won't be a surprise to you, but you're officially bleeding out. Your hematocrit is just dropping so low. We can't transfuse you quickly enough because you lose the blood more quickly than we can transfuse you. And I knew, because I can see all the bags we're going through of blood. And so I agreed to have surgery. It was going to be scheduled the next morning. It was going to be my own OBGYN physician as well as one of his partners. There had been a discussion of did I need to be transferred downtown? And we made the decision together. It was not necessary. It wasn't in my best interest. I was in my local community hospital, but at that time, they were doing about 5,000 births a year. So I knew they were very well prepared for any sorts of OB emergencies, GYN emergencies. And I'd had my two ectopic pregnancy surgeries there, as well as my infertility treatment there, as well as delivering my daughter. So it's like, I'm right where I need to be. So I was not transferred, and we agreed to do the surgery. I was going to be the first case the next morning, which I also knew they were really concerned about me. So I'm trying to relax the night before surgery. I'm alone in my room, just had dinner at 4:30 and trying to relax and marshal my resources. I did feel some relief because I'd made this really hard decision because there really wasn't any other option. So as I'm trying to just visualize the best possible outcome, that's where my mind was going. And the minute I had that thought, Lori, I popped right out of my body. So I leave my body, I'm hovering above it, and I'm feeling better and better because I'm back in pure soul form and I'm not in pain anymore and I'm not terrified anymore. And I look back over my left shoulder and I see myself in the bed. I see my body. I see Wendy, and I look at myself closely and go, wow, look at her. She's in a bad way. She's whiter than the sheets. And look at her hair. She looks like the wild woman of Borneo. My sense of humor was kind of coming back in because, of course, there's been like no hairbrush or mirror for 3 days. So, and then I just, and so I've made like this distinction because I realize I'm referring to myself in the third person. I'm calling myself the body, she and her. And I realize I'm in my pure soul form and feel fantastic. I see this white light. It's like in the shape of a triangle coming down from the hospital room ceiling. And all I want to do is follow that. So I take one more look at myself in the bed and I go, ah, she's fine. Very blasé about the body because I know that's not me. That's not the real me. That's not my soul. So I start following the white light and I go up and up. I'm feeling better and better, more and more clear-headed on everything in my life. I see the hospital grounds. I see Earth at one point and remember thinking, oh, we've got to take better care of her. She's so beautiful. What a beautiful, amazing planet. And then I'm continuing to go on up. And then all of a sudden, I get this terrible feeling like running out of gas. If you've ever been in a car that runs out of gas and you're just like stuttering to a stop, going, oh no, oh no, oh no. So I ran out of energy. I just couldn't move anymore. And I remember thinking, oh, please don't make me walk through one of those long tunnels. Now, again, I'm 36 years old. It is 1997. I've never watched a documentary about near-death experiences. I've never read about them. It just was a different time period. There wasn't all this wonderful information that's available now. But somehow I knew about that many people traveled through a tunnel to go home. So as I'm having this thought, don't make me walk through the tunnel. I don't have enough energy. Immediately, this pristine escalator drops in for me. It is gorgeous. So much light coming from it. There's no one else on it. I know it's my ride home. So I plop myself on it really gratefully. And in doing so, I plop over the handrail on the right side. And in doing so, that made me realize what my body shape was in soul form. I should have been like a beach ball with like all this like energy inside it. Instead, I'm like flatter than a pancake, just like hanging over the rail. Because my body was in such tough shape and I'm still attached to the body. So I ride the escalator on up. And at the top of the escalator, there's this amazing welcoming committee for me. My soul family is there. They're all there. There's like 18 or 20 of them. And the same 4 or 5 angels that came and helped me and saved my life in my bathroom a few days earlier, they're standing in the background. I can tell they're angels because they're larger and there's more light coming from them and I can sense the wings. Whereas my soul family, they all look exactly the same. Like I said, like these just amazing big orbs, like beach ball size, just amazing orbs. And my 4 grandparents were there. I was not that surprised to get to see my mom's parents, my maternal grandparents. I knew them really well. We had lived with them for a couple of years, and I was so thrilled to see them. But also, my dad's parents were there, which was so special. I knew exactly who they were. But Lori, I never met them in this lifetime. They predeceased me. So they died before I was born, but yet you know exactly who everyone is, even though everyone looks the same. Can we please let go of these distinctions that make no sense with this bias and prejudice regarding gender and skin color and cultural differences? It makes no sense. We're just all souls and we're all exactly the same. And one of my best friends in my lifetime now was there. And that took me a second to compute because it's like, wait a minute, she's very much alive. So that made me realize that higher self energy is up there with the light. So there's no missed reunions because I often hear people expressing concern. Well, what about when I pass on? I so want to see my mother again, my grandfather, whoever. You're not going to miss anyone because we can have those reunions because that higher self energy, even if they've incarnated and are doing something else wonderful. So what happens is I'm sorting out who all these people are. They all just grab me in this huge hug. I could have stayed there forever. It was unconditional love. And it just makes me want to tear up even now, 26 years later, because we don't feel unconditional love and that full acceptance very often. So that made me realize we've really got to give this to ourselves and know how to give this to ourselves and then just radiate that out to others because we're not doing a great job at it. So getting this huge hug from everyone, everything's happening very quickly, yet nothing feels rushed. I can sense that time is different on the other side. And I then hear the same male angel speak that had spoken to me in my bathroom. And the minute he says, "Welcome home. We're so glad you're here. You made it. You've done nothing wrong. You're welcome to stay." The moment he started speaking, I knew. I was like, "Oh my goodness, it's Archangel Michael." That's who was in my bathroom. So, and as I'm still getting this hug and he's saying this, I'm like, "Well, of course I'm staying. Why would I go back?" And but he continues and says, you're welcome to stay. It's your choice, but you're going to need to decide quickly. And I kind of flash back on that body bleeding out in the bed that does not have a soul. It's like, yeah, obviously. So he tells me I can share three things with you to help you make your decision. Number one, if you choose to go back, you will have a successful surgery tomorrow and you'll fully regain your health. This is huge. I can feel some weight of the world coming off my shoulders with this because I had been very concerned about that. Number two, if you choose to go back, your baby will be born healthy. This is also huge because, again, medical emergency, transfusions, morphine, now surgery. Yes, I was very much concerned about my baby's health. And having been an infertility patient and having had two ectopics, this baby felt really special to me. And I felt like it was my last opportunity to have another child. So number three, so I'm starting to like, oh, should I go back? This is really important information. This is making me consider going back. And then number three was the kicker. Michael tells me, if you choose to go back, your life will be very difficult, likely for many years, because you're not living your purpose. You're not on your life path. I feel so embarrassed. I am just like, ugh, that is the worst. No one wants to hear they're not living their purpose. So of course I look at it, I'm like, well, Tell me more. What is it? Oh my gosh, I want to do the right thing. That's terrible. Tell me what to do. Tell me what to stop doing, what to let go of, what to do more of. And he just gently shakes his head, Lori. So it's like, okay, no more information there. But I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. There's other angels here. My whole soul group is here. Come on, there's got to be a chatty Cathy in the group dynamics. So I go around to all of them and I'm like basically trying to shake them all down to get more information. And I'm getting more and more frantic. So everyone can tell because you've got this beautiful telepathy at home because we really are all one. And we just forget that when we're on the planet Earth, and we forget so many things. And no one will tell me, but they can see and feel and sense I am just really concerned and upset, and my energy's just plummeting. So they start being silly. I mean, they're just so funny. So when I ask the next person, they like lock their mouth up with a key and throw it away, but it's like really comical. It's just very exaggerated for effect. Or they put like duct tape over their mouths, like, we want to tell you, but we can't. We're not supposed to. So I realize, okay, that's part of my path, is to have this struggle and to need to figure it out for myself. So, okay, that's the way it is. So at that point, Archangel Michael asks me, what do you want to do? And the minute he asks me that, all I can see is our adorable toddler's face. I can see Tara's face, but it's not normal size. It like fills my world view. It's bigger than an IMAX screen theater. It's just everything. And I can see her big hazel eyes and her sweet smile and her little curly brown hair. And I'm like, oh my goodness, there's my answer right there. So I tell Michael, put me back in, coach. I'm ready to play, meaning to engage with life at a deeper level and just do my best. And I tell him, I'm going back. I want to go back for my children, plural, because I know I'm also going to have the healthy baby. So everyone gives me one more huge group hug now that I've made this huge decision. And that time I feel not only the unconditional love and the support from everyone, but I feel energy being downloaded to me. And I just feel healthier and stronger and more confident that I'm going to make it through that surgery the next day. I'm not sure I would have made it otherwise. It was a long and complex surgery. So it just was so incredible to get that love and support from everyone. So as everyone kind of steps back, because Michael's motioning like we need to move at this point, and everyone steps back and he just puts me back down on the escalator, and I'm looking over my shoulder and everyone's like in cheerleader mode. They're like, you're so brave. You've got this. You can do it. We're rooting for you. We love you. We support you. And I'm like, I'd never, felt that level of support before in my life. It was really a big deal. So I go back down the escalator, just smiling and waving to everybody. I know I've made the right decision. And I go back into the hospital room, and then I see my body and I just plop gently. The escalator just ends right there. And I just plop gently back into my body. And then the escalator and the light it just fades away. My immediate two thoughts as I plop back into my body was like, ugh, ow, this is so painful. I'm so glad the surgery's in the morning. I just have to make it through the night. And this is going to be resolved tomorrow morning. And my other thought was, wow, why is she so small? This is really annoying to me. Because I just knew the higher self, the soul energy is so big, and to be crunched into this little 5'2" body, it was kind of my last thought of myself in third person. I'm like, why is she so annoyingly small? And I was like, oh yeah, I picked it. Okay, okay. Just it is what it is. So that's what happened. Do you have
And that's your first
mm,
one. So you had two of them. So can I ask you questions about this one and then
please?
have you continue on? Oh my
Yes.
gosh, Wendy, I have so many questions for you. This I forget sometimes when I'm far away from listening to an experience how incredible they are, but I remember now why I love this one so much. So I'm going to go way back to the very beginning where you had the prophetic dreams, the
Mhm.
dreams that told you you knew that there was something that was going to happen. Your ship was going down and you needed to pay attention. So I'm
Mm.
curious now with the hindsight and knowing what happened later and knowing about that dream, how did that dream prepare you? What did it cause you to maybe do or not do that you don't think you would have understood had you not had that dream experience?
I think that is such a brilliant question. No one has asked me that question before. I think what it did was it put me on high alert in a beneficial way, and it made me call out to God. I mean, I cried out for help as I was going down in the bathroom, and I think that was just really important, and that sense of impending doom. So just for me to just surrender and cry out and ask for help. And from there, from the moment I did that, I get my husband at work right away and he's home in 4 minutes. Everything's just, I'm getting everything I need for help.
That's amazing. And I think that the reason I wanted to ask that question is, again, to the large audience, these videos live in perpetuity. Who knows how many people over time will see this? And maybe somebody out there is having these dreams, and it's important for them to maybe pay attention to them. So I love this
Exactly.
part of it. I love it.
Exactly. Don't just, our intuition is so brilliant, is so wise. Pay attention to it. Because I could have just pushed it off as, "Oh, you have a lot of crazy dreams when you're pregnant." It's just I didn't know what to do with it, but I was paying attention to it because to have it keep repeating and to be the same dream and be so vivid, I really was paying attention to it.
Yeah, that's super. That's incredible. All right, let's talk about the angels. I'm super curious about this. So you mentioned a couple of the features about them. You mentioned that they were taller than those other orb souls.
Mhm.
So when you were on the other side, it sounded like they might have been orb-ish, similar to the other souls, but more like in form when you opened your eyes and saw them.
They were tall. They were tall both times, much taller than people, like 9, 10 feet.
Oh,
And
wow. When you're saying taller, I'm like 7 feet,
big,
9, 10 feet. I've heard
big.
other people say that. That's okay.
Big, and
Mhm.
I could tell in the bathroom that they were angels. I could just feel the love coming from their hearts, but I also could see that they were floating a few inches off the floor of my bathroom, and I could see, like, the wings curled up at the bottom, like, their wings are so big that they would have if they'd been, standing on the floor, the wings would have dragged slightly behind them, so I was like, "Oh, look at that." I couldn't see faces clearly. I could just see these beautiful, like, white capes with, like, hoods around them. I think I just didn't need to see the faces, but Michael's voice was very distinctive. It's just I didn't recognize it at home when it first happened, but then a few days later, when I have the second NDE, when I'm in the hospital, then the minute I hear it, it's like, "Oh, of course, it's Archangel Michael."
I he is a he and Jesus might be in a tie for the busyness on the other side with these NDEs because I have had a lot of people where Archangel Michael was the messenger that was having them decide if they were going to stay or go, and here it is again. So were the other angels also archangels since he's an archangel? Were they guardian angels? Do you have any idea who the other
I
angels
have
were?
That's a great question. Let me just ask my guides right now. Again, no one has asked me this, so this is a wonderful question. One was my guardian angel that's been with me since birth and doesn't choose to share the name. The others were angels. There were no other archangels.
Okay. I love that you could just get this answer right now. This is amazing because obviously a lot of people, when they have these experiences, come back with different gifts that they didn't have before. So we'll approach that a little bit later. So the other thing that I thought was really unusual about your experience that I've never heard anybody say before is that you were told that you just have to be willing to try. And by the way, I think that should be a t-shirt for you that are making and selling to people out there. And when you said you made that effort, all the effort it took to get into that hand, like crawling position, but then it was like they flew you. So do you think that happened because when you made the free will decision, they could then assist you because they
Yes,
were not overriding your free will?
exactly, exactly, exactly. Because it was just like being I just was like a few inches and I was what just happened? I was there. What just happened? Oh, I could feel the gentle picking me up and just gently moving me. And I was still on the floor trying to reach up to find and grab the phone. So I'm still on the floor. And then it took everything I had after I called the doctor's office, took everything I had to crawl, grab my purse. And then I was afraid to walk down the stairs because I was upstairs. I thought that is not safe for me to walk down this full flight of stairs. So I went like a toddler and I kind of bumped my butt down step by step. And I was sitting in the foyer or sitting by the front door. I'd unlocked it, reached up and unlocked it when my husband came home. And then he helped me and was like picking me up and getting me in the car. That's all the mobility I had.
Yeah, it's amazing that you survived that with all that blood loss.
Mhm.
So you also said that you left your body and you looked back and you were looking in the room. Was there anything in particular that you saw that you were later able to get a confirmation from somebody, like an evidential piece of information about things that you saw from that vantage point?
No, I just really was focused on myself and my body. I wasn't zipping around checking out other things in the hospital or reading charts or looking at for pens dropped in interesting places or red shoes out on the ledge.
Well, those are newer things. This is 97. People weren't even, that wasn't even on their radar
Right. I
if
just
they'd
was
even heard
looking at
about near death experiences.
myself and looking at working out in my mind what my pure soul form was and how great I felt versus the body in the bed. That was about the limit of it.
Okay. Then you leave your body, and as you are going up, you look back and you see the planet. You referred to her as
Mhm.
a conscious, sentient being. I've heard people say this a lot. Tell me, and I know it was a brief encounter that you had with that. Tell me what you know about planet Earth from the perspective of what you saw her as.
I believe what I saw, it was like the Google Earth version, only more gorgeous. I believe it's the view that astronauts get to see, and they can start to see like the curve of it. And they talk about they're never the same again, that their heart just expands and swells because we get the privilege of living here. So come on, people, we got to do it better. We've just got to take care of this planet and address global warming and other issues that we're causing. So I remember just having that and feeling this gratitude for this gorgeous, I could see like deep blues and bright greens was kind of my impression of what I saw, some water and some land masses. And then it's like, okay, I need to focus on following the light up. So I turned uh, my vantage point back there.
Okay. Since you mentioned the earth and I saw you get weepy, remembering and saying, "Hey, everybody wake up." I'm going to share a video up here. I had a guest on this year who had a near death experience and he like you was told by Archangel Michael that he had to go back because he had a job to do and he had a visitation by an angel and he wrote about it 7 pages that were in his handwriting, but when he woke up, he doesn't remember writing them and everything was perfect. He knows he didn't write it. And it was a manifesto.
Writing.
Yeah, it was a
Mhm.
manifesto that said that he was to go and clone the ancient trees of the world. This was 30 years ago. This organization is called Archangel Ancient Tree Archive. They have cloned about 70 of the world's largest trees and they're planting them all over the world. They've planted like 300,000 of these to 500,000 of these trees. And it's an organization that I'm associated with. So for those people that are interested in that planet part where it has some spirituality connected to it, I'll let you check out that video because I would think a lot of us really care about what's going on in the earth.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay,
Wonderful.
so you get to heaven
Mhm.
and you see your soul family. Wendy, I can't even tell you how excited I am to have this conversation with you. I have been talking about soul families for a very long time. I don't know if this is a clear cognizance, a clear knowing for me, but it was imparted to me in some way that our soul families are not massively big. Now we have levels of soul families, but the closest
Mhm,
families are like 10, 12,
mhm,
15, and you said the number 18. So
mhm,
I love this for a confirmation for me personally because this mirrors what I have come to understand. And I
mhm.
also love that you talked about the higher soul, the oversoul, the higher self being there, because on my experiences on the other side, I was shown that this pinky fingernail was all of my higher self that was in my Lori current incarnation. So for you seeing this soul family and you recognized your one of your best friends who was on earth and you knew that's almost impossible, did you have other people that you recognize that were either alive at the time that this happened or not with us that were in that group?
She was the only person I recognized that is also alive on the planet. The other people, that I recognized were not incarnated, because my belief is we incarnate with with different people, some of whom may be on Earth with us at the time and others are not. We don't incarnate with the exact same crowd all the time.
I super agree with that. That has also been what I have been shown. And I think I've only encountered maybe two or three people that I think are part of my soul family that are even incarnate right now. So I love that we're talking about this. So tell us a little bit more. I know you do the past life regression. We'll get into that, but tell me a little bit more so everybody can understand this. How do you think these soul families work?
I believe soul families are groups of souls that we work together with very regularly, that we incarnate together many times. I think there's some fluidity to it because based on quickly everyone's progressing, sometimes people can leave that soul family and move on up to another soul group, or there can be some fluidity to it. I've recognized most of, I've identified most of those 18 or so people. And my current mother, stepmother, father, two of my cousins I'm closest to, all four grandparents are all part of my brother who's deceased, are all part of that immediate soul family. I believe we make plans and agreements with them. And if we're going to incarnate together, we can form soul contracts. So it's something we want to work on. For instance, I chose in this lifetime as a soul that I wanted to get better at forgiveness. I just wanted that to come more easily to me. I wanted to be progress in that area. And therefore you've got to create some experiences that you are going to consider unforgivable or very hard to forgive, or how can you work on that? If everything's peachy keen during that lifetime, how would you be working on it? So I believe we can have soul family members and soulmates that are for they're for learning, they're for us teaching and growing with together. So soulmates, it's not all peaches and cream. It can be some of the hardest things that we're working on because they're agreeing to play that role for us and with us so that we can just grow and expand with who we are.
I love that you said all of this. This is so empowering. This channel is about empowerment. One of the things that happens is that I get a lot of comments on these different videos that I post, and I read every single comment. And what I see over and over again is a theme of why in the world would we come here and have these hard experiences? God can't exist. God has to be bad. God, all these things because we perceive these negative things as being thrust upon us, not as experiences that we cause, to your point, to be able to learn something. So I'm so happy that you are sharing this because when you talk about this and when I try and convey this, it makes so much logical sense. If you come to have a certain experience, the only way that you can learn certain things is to have it. And when you said you came here to learn forgiveness, my initial reaction was, oh, so sorry, because I knew immediately that meant, yes, you had to have all of these ridiculously difficult situations then thrust upon you to be able to even learn and get to the place
Right,
where you could forgive
exactly.
somebody. But you also mentioned something else, which I think is an interesting caveat. And I go back and forth. It's almost like that, what came first, the chicken or the egg? People talk all the time about evil. Evil, these people do these things and it's evil. And my sometimes my response is, what if it's not evil? What if we had a soul contract and somebody, if we're all just love really on the other side, is playing a role to help you? And you alluded to that. And since you've done all these past life regressions, will you speak to this, because there are a lot of people listening that need to hear
Absolutely.
about this?
Absolutely. I want to say this with the greatest of empathy, because when we're going through real challenges and heartbreak and things are so, so difficult, it is very easy for our vibration to get lower and lower as we get worn down by the divorce, the job loss, the estranged child, the child passing on, whatever life's most difficult challenges. And they often come in a tsunami of the perfect storm of multiple at once, it seems like. And when we just get worn down, we just can really be a martyr or a victim of, why do these terrible things always happen to me? And everyone's so evil and God can't really exist, because why would there be these terrible things happening? And when we can find a way to take, call it radical responsibility, have the self-love, the self-compassion to ask the question, what if this is happening for me instead of to me? And what if I'm creating this incredible, I'm trying not to use profanity, such and such storm,
A shit
S-H-I,
show.
S-H-I storm. What if, because I'm the common denominator of like someone that's had 3 or 4 just horrible bosses in a row. Well, don't you have to like look at yourself and go, wait a minute, am I not in my power? Am I not loving myself? Am I not presenting my authentic self? Do I have some poor decision make? Why am I attracting this again and again? Or someone that continuously attracts narcissistic partners, emotionally unavailable, hurtful partners. What's the common denominator? It's us. And we've just got to take responsibility and say, okay, so why is this happening for me? What do I need to do differently? And just start to look at that. I don't, I like you, I don't believe in evil. I believe God, and you might, other people might use a different word, and that's absolutely fine, but whatever you might see as a divine being or creator, source love, whatever it might be, what if, I'll use the term God, what if God loved us so much that he gave us free will on this planet and allows us to create anything and everything that we've created to be able to learn and to do better? Because if we're on easy street the whole time, we don't learn very much at all. Yes, occasionally we do choose to take a vacation life, a reward life, a rest life, but it's not the lesson rich life like someone where our souls, because our souls just are so darn happy and experiencing that unconditional love and so much energy, our souls can be very ambitious with what we choose to take on. So when you see the people that are homeless, that have gone through child abuse or neglect, uh, I have a lot of questions about that, because I wonder what that person chose from that. And I don't believe everything can be planned and chosen. I believe there's this balance between what our soul wants to do, and the play run, so to speak, that everyone's choosing to act out with us. And then there is some destiny to it. And you cannot plan all these details because it's so incredibly complex. Our minds can't begin to comprehend it because each person has then got their play run of what they're working on too. And we don't know exactly how it's all going to mix.
Yeah, that's why free will changes the game. But I
Mm,
want to add one more thing that I think is really important to that whole thought process. And that is, I think the reason that God gives us the free will and we come here and we do all these things, it doesn't matter if we get blown up. It doesn't matter. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm not putting an emotion to it. But on a soul level, if your soul cannot be harmed, then you have the free will to try and experience any of those things, because it's like the video game where your character died, but then you just start the game all over again and there you
right.
are. And so if
Push
you
the reset
can't be
button.
harmed, then that also changes it.
Exactly. Exactly. And sometimes souls can get really worn down and need to spend more time at home, more time in just healing places and getting perspective. I had a past life a healing session where the therapist asked so kindly, and no one had ever asked me this before. So I'm like deep in that relaxation and that beautiful state where I'm speaking as my higher self. And she asked me something to the effect of, how is her soul doing? Is her soul tired? Is her soul injured? Does her soul need healing? And I just burst into tears and was just bawling because no one had ever asked. Because usually you're healing these specific past lives and then bringing that healing forward to the lifetime now. But she just took this broader approach to it, and she asked if my soul needed healing. And evidently that was a big yes.
Wow,
So it was
that's
really
incredible.
powerful.
So, Wendy, after this, you wound up having these different abilities. Obviously, you connect to spirit, you hear spirit, but then you got into past life regressions. So, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about past life regressions and what you do for people?
Certainly. So I have the good fortune to be a past life energy healer. It's a spiritual gift, and it started coming in with that NDE. And then various things happened that took me down this path, including having my own first couple of sessions as the client, and they changed everything in my life for me. I released a lifetime of anxiety in my first session when I was 50 years old. I had a 2-hour session. I mean, 20 years of talk therapy couldn't have released that anxiety in 2 hours because we got back to the experiences that were causing it. So I help people release physical and emotional pain, anxiety, depression, and stuck energy. And I do it via hypnotherapy, via guided meditations, visualizations. I help people connect with their guides because that is such a game changer. I take people to all different types of healing temples, crystal caves, wherever is indicated that would be the best place for them to go. And then we also go to the time and place with the most uplift and healing and information for their life today. So it's very practical, and it's helping improve people's lives now, and it's getting them much more in the present moment. Whereas anxiety often is us worrying too much about the future. And then we don't realize we're starting to create through law of attraction what we don't want because we're obsessing, what if this happens and what if that happens, and getting on that crazy train. And depression is often, realize there can be absolutely chemical components to this too, hormonal in the body. But depression is, we just don't know how to let go of the past. And we're just carrying around the weight of the world with us more and more, and just killing ourselves with the coulda, woulda, shouldas and the regrets of the past. So again, not in the present moment. So just helping people get there. So we go to the lifetime or lifetimes of origin that we need to be able to release what is the issue for people now. Uh, with many people, we might go back to scenes earlier in this lifetime and clean up some of those and be able to see them from a higher plane and from our adult level now, because it might be something that happened when you were a child, a teenager. Some would call that inner child healing. We also can be healing the shadow, just simply that part of us that we least like, and just being able to embrace it. We balance the ego so that the ego and the mind, it's meant to be a wonderful servant, but too often it tries to be the master. And no, you can't do that. And no, you're not good enough for that. And you're going to make a fool of yourself. And that sort of negative self talk can just be running our lives. And we're just living these really small lives, not this big, glorious life that our souls want us to live, and can be so much more exciting and fun, experiential for us. So I help people with that. They get to write up to 20 questions before the first session, because it's a series of 3 sessions, a 2.5 hour, a 1 hour, and a 1 hour. And they write what health questions, requests they have, anything about wealth and career, anything about relationships, and then miscellaneous. And then what we do as we are wrapping up with the past life, we purposefully go to the last day of the past life, remind people you're an eternal soul, you cannot die, you can let go of that body, let's just thank it. You're not going to feel any discomfort leaving that body, regardless of how you passed on in that lifetime. That was a long time ago. And then we raise our vibration and frequency and go up to the light, just like I did in the NDE. So as many of the positive aspects of the NDE without the trauma that's taken you to the point of dying, because you're safely doing this with your hypnotherapist, with me helping the person go through this. So we go up to the light, and there the person's guide, who they've met earlier in session 1 or 2, is waiting with their book of life and answers the important questions and requests that they have. And that's a big deal, to be able to access the wisdom of our soul, because our soul memory is timeless, but normally there's this veil of amnesia. So to be able to appropriately find help and answers for what we most need. Is everything going to be shown to us? No, it would just be overwhelming. You couldn't be in the present moment. It'd be just TMI, too much information. That's why it's in the book of life, which you can also call the book of love. And every person has one about them.
That's amazing. I love all this. So healing.
So those are the things that we do.
That's great. So if people want to connect with you, Wendy, how do they work with you?
Via my website is the best way, which is wendyrosewilliams.com. And
Okay.
you'll find on the homepage how to work together privately. And you'll also find on the events tab, I offer some fun, uplifting group events for people. And you'll also find my books there.
Okay. Well, I'll put those down in the show notes. Wendy, I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. We got to talk about some things that I really have a big interest in, and it's always so much fun for me to be able to do that. I just want to thank you so much for your vulnerability, because it takes a lot to share these stories with the world and be vulnerable. And thank you so much for just sharing your wisdom and everything that you've picked up, and for helping to raise the vibration of the collective consciousness. I think it's so needed right now.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. And right back at you, Lori. Thank you for what you're doing, because it really is important, because we do all help each other as the collective consciousness is raising. And as you pointed out, just letting go of those thoughts of evil or hell or God not loving us, or there not being just this loving creator, because we really can lift up from that and let go of this war and poverty, and really be in that place of peace and love and joy and gratitude that I see as the heaven on earth energies.
Right. And when we all do that, we all raise the vibration of the collective conscious. So
Exactly.
it's a ripple effect on everybody.
Exactly. And we just are able to help lift one another up. I mean, isn't that the definition of a best friend?
Yeah.
They help us, of good friends, is they just help us see the best in us at times when it's really challenging for us, and we've forgotten those parts of us, and then we're able to do it for them when things are going great for us, and we can help lift them up. So what's that expression? Those wonderful friends and family that you get along with the best. That's just you double the joy and half the sorrow.
Right, exactly. Well, I think you just have to be willing to try, right?
Exactly. Like you said, that's the t-shirt.
It's the t-shirt. It's a
Straight from
t-shirt.
Archangel Michael. You just have to be willing to try.
Exactly. Well,
I love
thank
the
you.
contest of who's the busiest, Archangel Michael or Yeshua.
There we go. I know, seriously. I love that. Put that in the comments, whatever you guys think. All right. Thank you so much again. And thank you, everybody, for watching.
Bye for now.
Next up, check out this playlist of other NDE interviews. Please like and subscribe. It really helps this channel to grow so I can bring you more content. Thank you for watching. I'm so glad you're here.